Hi everyone, we're back with chapter 5, which is the beginning of the next section. We're going to talk about planning and leading in this section. Remember the four functions of management: planning, leading, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So we're going to be talking about planning and organizing. Okay, so essentially there are three different definitions of planning. It's setting goals and deciding how to achieve them, coping with uncertainty by formulating future courses of action to achieve specific results, and it's a document that outlines how goals are going to be met. But really, ultimately, the whole part of the plan, the most important part of a plan is it helps you deal with uncertainty because nothing goes as planned. As expected, things always come up. There are external forces, internal forces that change, and so you always have to be flexible, but it's important that you keep your end goal in mind at all times. Okay, so here are two different examples of a plan. There's a business plan and a business model. There are two common plans that are used in the workplace. And in addition to these, the business model also describes the industry you're entering, so how your product will be, how you're going to be different from your competitors, how you'll distinguish yourself in the marketplace to your customers, and also how qualified you are to run the business, and also how you're going to finance your business. The business plan talks about a variety of different things. It's really important. The business plan and business model both talk about those things, but it's important that you have all of those things laid out. Particularly, the business plan is used in addition for that also to gain funding for your project or for your future business. Okay, so the strategic plan essentially sets the long-term plan, long-term goals. What is it that you eventually want to achieve? Are you trying to introduce new products? Are you trying to expand the market? What's your long-term goal? And everything is kind of focused on that. So for instance, for you guys, your long-term goal would be to get a degree in a certain amount of time, and everything will be focused on reaching that goal of getting a degree. So again, we can't predict the future, but the strategic plan sort of just shows a general outline of what it is that we think is going to happen, and again helps us to make decisions. The plan is a decision-making tool. Plans are decision-making tools. Okay, strategic management is just that. It's a process that involves managers from all parts of the organization in the formulation and implementation of strategies and strategic goals. It's important that that everyone is aligned. The goals are aligned with everyone, with all levels of the management and all levels of the organization, so that everybody is rowing in the same direction, so to speak. Everyone's marching in the same direction, and that all different facets of the organization are included in making those decisions. Okay, so this is basically the method of going about. You determine what the mission, the vision, and the values are. We're going to talk about those. You assess the current reality of what's going on. So you're sort of taking a temperature of what's happening. We're going to talk about this. You come up with a grand strategy, and then you come up with the tactical and the operational plans. You implement it, and then you go through and check and see how you're doing with each one. So that's really part of controlling. Okay, so why is it important? The importance of planning can really never be underestimated. It provides a direction, so everyone knows what you're doing from the top of the organization to the bottom. It's an opportunity to come up with new ideas and also to come up with some level of competitive advantage. So competitive advantage, of course, is what you do that's better than your competition. How is it that you are different in the minds of your customers? How is it that you're different from the competition? That's your competitive advantage. So is it quality? We talked about this before too. Is it quality? Is it price? Is it delivery time? Is it variety of products available? Is it customer service? The strategic plan really helps to understand that. Okay, so why do you want to plan? So unless there's a plan in place, you just don't really know what's going on. You're only focusing, on the day-to-day. It's sort of like, being able to see the forest from the trees. It's the idea that you want to be focusing just on small things, but understand how things work in the bigger picture. So You might want to, there are some examples here. So Amazon.com, for example, I don't know if any of you guys remember Borders bookstores, but Borders went by the wayside because Amazon, um, took over with its online. And with, Uber, now we see Uber sort of nudging taxi cabs out. And, uh, blogs, did newspapers respond quickly enough to blogs, that kind of thing. And how did, large corporations like Anheuser-Busch, for example, respond to, smaller, this whole growth of microbreweries and artisanal, um, grocery products and all that kind of thing. How do they respond? Because a strategic plan, or general plan in general, uh, helps you to deal. Those are the uncertainties that are going to come up in your industry. Borders didn't see Amazon coming, and they needed. They lost out because they couldn't react. Okay, so we talk about encouraging new ideas. So this idea of strategy innovation, it's coming up with new ideas, basically new business models. And you see the most successful companies are the ones that have those. Always coming up with something new. Apple does it, Amazon does it. Organized places that are sort of on the cutting edge of the industry. Okay, so this we talked about this competitive advantage. So as we've talked about before, it could be whatever your competitive advantage is, and this comes up in the comes up in the business plan. It's people you spend a lot of time, businesses spend a lot of time thinking about this and going through it and vetting different ideas and that kind of thing. So it really is a time for reflection and for people to think about things. Okay, so this is idea of VRIO, pronounced by its letters. It's a framework to analyze a resource or capability to determine its competitive strategic potential by answering 4 questions about its value, rarity, imitability, and organization. Imitability is this idea of how easy is it to imitate. So, as I said, it's a way for a firm to analyze a firm's competitive potential by asking 4 questions that we just talked about: the value, rarity, imitability, and organization. A yes answer to each question means the resource or capability, that is the business idea, has a competitive advantage. It may also help to run through so we can go through. It might be helpful for you guys to look through what this chart itself. Is the idea valuable? No. Yes. Is it rare? Is it easy to imitate? That kind of thing. So when I go through and think about things. So anyway, you could think about that for, maybe you could talk about with Uber, for example, Uber or Lyft. Is it valuable to have some sort of on-demand ride service for unaccompanied children provided by drivers in their personal cars? Is it valuable because some parents say they really need such a service, or is it not valuable? Is it rare? No other firms in your area are yet offering the on-demand children's ride services. So it is rare, so it's a competitive advantage. Is it costly to imitate? Probably not, but getting a process up and running, so you might have a temporary advantage. And then the question that are you able to is the company actually able to implement it? That's something that would come in terms of the organization. That's a question that they would have to ask. Okay, so let's talk about the fundamentals of planning. So there's essentially 3 different types of planning. Strategic planning, which is done by top managers, and it's for the next 1 to 5 years. Tactical planning is done by middle managers for the next 6 to 24 months. And operational planning is done by first-line managers for the next year. So you can take a look at that. And then, what is the mission? What's the mission? What's the vision? What's the values? We're going to talk about that in a minute. But just so you have a feeling, an idea for this. Strategic is 1 to 5 years. Tactical is tactical planning by the middle managers is the 6 to 24, and operational is frontline managers, and it's really the very immediate future. Okay, what is the difference between mission, vision, and values? Mission essentially is who we are, who you are. Vision is who you want to be. And values is what is it that you stand for? What's important to you? Um, what are your core priorities? You're seeing that whole thing here. Okay. So we can take a little example here, Hilton Hotels. Mission statement to be the preeminent global hospitality company, the first choice of guests, team members, and owners alike. The vision statement to fill the earth with light and warmth of hospitality. How's that for a Hallmark card? And then value statement, they cleverly spell out Hilton, but their value, they believe in hospitality, integrity, leadership, teamwork, ownership, and now. That the idea that they operate with a sense of urgency, that whatever their customers want, they're going to take care of as immediately as possible. Okay, so there's 3 types of planning for 3 levels of management. Top management, of course, we see the strategic, middle management, tactical planning, and first line management is operational. We've gone through that before, but the importance of it cannot be overemphasized. So they make, top management makes overall decisions, overall policy and direction. It's very future oriented. Tactical planning is how you can implement that. And then there's the direct and daily tasks. Okay, so let's talk about short-term and long-term goals. Goals are a specific commitment to achieve a measurable result within a stated period of time. We're going to talk about goals a little bit more. Long-term goal is also referred to as a strategic goal. Short-term goal are just tactical or operational goals. Generally, 12 months, could be a little bit longer. Okay, then we have an operating plan. The operating plan breaks things down into smaller, more easily digestible tasks that people can look at. And then that's the operating plan. And then the action plan defines the actual course of action or the tactics that are going to be used to achieve the goals. So we look at an example next here. Strategic goal is to increase revenue by new customers from new customers by 10% over the next 12 months. The operational goal, so you're trying to increase revenue to introduce or roll out the new product offerings. And the action plan is going to be, we're going to have the product development team do this. We're going to have products pilot tested. We're going to modify them. We're going to train the sales force, that kind of thing. So that's, you can kind of see so the strategic goal is this overall goal of increasing revenue. They're going to do it by introducing this new product and then those different action steps. Okay, so there's standing plans and single-use plans. Essentially, standing plans are for policy, procedures, and rules. And single-use plans are for a program or a project. Some things that we don't see, it doesn't happen as often. New building going up, new product rollout, that kind of thing. Okay, now this is important. It's something to think about too. SMART goals. You hear about a lot about them. You'll hear about SMART goals quite a bit, and it's actually a very good thing to keep in mind for yourself too when you're trying to come up with maybe a plan for the future. So they want to be specific. Goals should be stated in specific rather than vague terms. A goal that as many planes as possible should arrive on time is really general, but a goal that 90% of planes should arrive within 15 minutes of the scheduled arrival time is specific. Okay, measurable. Goals should be measurable or quantifiable, as in the 90% of the planes with arriving within 15 minutes. There should be some way to measure the degree to which the goal has been achieved. Attainable, they should be challenging, but they should also be realistic and attainable. So if you want to set goals that are ambitious, but not that are ambitious that are going to challenge people, but not impossible to achieve. Results oriented. Only a few goals should be chosen, say probably 5 for any work unit, and they should be results oriented. They should support the organization's vision, and the organization's mission as well. And then target dates, so when you'll be finished. You'll know when you're supposed to be done. Okay, so this is the whole idea of goal difficulty and performance, because if it's too difficult, performance can go down. So if they're too easy, as in half the flights to arrive on time, the goals won't necessarily impel people to put much effort in. But and if they're impossible, all flights must arrive on time regardless of weather, they won't even bother trying because that's just impossible to have happen. Or they'll try and continually fail, which ends up, causing, hurt morale and that kind of thing. Or they're going to cheat. So you want to make sure that whatever you're proposing is challenging enough, but not so challenging that people will be discouraged if it doesn't happen. Okay, so there's this other whole idea of management by objectives. Management by objective is this idea that managers and employees jointly set goals together, and then the manager develops an action plan, and then they periodically you review the performance, and then you make some kind of, we're going to talk about performance appraisal in the next couple of chapters, but that you reward employees based on results. Okay, so there are a bunch of different, there are 3 different types of objectives essentially used in management by objective. One are improvement objectives. The second are personal development objectives, and finally are maintenance objectives. So the improvement objectives, it's to have some sort of express or specific performance that's to be accompanied in a specific way for a specific area. So increase sport utility sales by 10%, reduce food spoilage by 15%. Personal development objectives would be to for personal goals, attend certain days of leadership training, learn basics of Microsoft, that kind of thing. And then maintenance objectives to express the intention to maintain performance at previously established levels, so continue to meet increased sales goals, or produce another 60 cases of wine, that kind of thing. So 3 levels of management objectives: improvement objectives, personal development objectives, and maintenance objectives. Yeah, there's also this whole idea of cascading goals. So the idea that objectives are structured in a unified hierarchy, becoming more specific at lower levels of the organization. So top management has to be committed to it. They have to be applied organization-wide, and they also must be linked consistently down through the organization. So there has to be this idea that top managers set strategic goals, which are translated into divisional goals, which are then translated into departmental goals, which are then translated into individual goals. And the cascading process ends when all individuals have a set of goals that support the overall strategic goals. It really helps employees understand how their work contributes to overall corporate success. Okay, so here we have the 2 planning steps. Make the plan, carry out the plan. And then there's control, when the 2 following steps. They control the direction by comparing the results with the plan. So how many, of the, with planes, for example, is that working? And then you control the directions by either you correct it, maybe they're finding that it's maybe 90% is too low and they should say 95, or maybe they think 90% is too high and they switch it to 85, that kind of thing. So it's just constantly like revision and looking at things. So let's look at another example here. So making the plan, Apple Watch would be designed to solve a problem created by technology, namely that it's overwhelming the user with all sorts of distracting texts, emails, and other alerts. And then carrying out the plan, develop the watch, and that worked on the smartphone and that kind of thing. And then comparing the results, how things happened, and then taking any kind of corrective action. So what else can they do? What else would it do? So you want to think about constantly reviewing and looking. So that's a quick look at planning, and just as again, I really can't emphasize enough the importance of planning and having some kind of roadmap. A plan is a roadmap. If you're going to go on a trip, you need a map, to find what roads are going to take you to your ultimate destination. The same is true for a plan in business. Okay, thanks guys, and we'll see you back here for chapter 6.